I'm back in the saddle again. Back where a friend is a friend, where the longhorn cattle feed on the lowly Jimson weed. Back in the saddle again, riding the range once more, toting my old 44, where we sleep out every night and the only law is right. Back in the saddle again. Whoopee-tie-yi-yo, rocking to and fro. Back in the saddle again. Whoopee-tie-yi-yay, I go my own way. Back in the saddle again. Well, howdy there, saddle pals and saddle palettes. Welcome to the Gene Autry Podcast. This is where we discuss the career of America's legendary Western entertainer, Gene Autry, and tell stories about some of the other great performers who got to share the stage and screen with him, like his faithful sidekick, Smiley Burnett, or his backup band, Fred Martin and the Cass County Boys. I'm your faithful guide, trailhand Toby Hansen, and joining me is the rootinest, tootinest, gunslingingest cowboy from Southern Illinois, Ainsley Highland. Whoopee-tie-yi-yo, rocking to and fro, back in the saddle again. Whoopee-tie-yi-yay, I go my own way, back in the saddle again.
Wait a minute. We can't talk about Gene Autry. He's a member of that other fraternity.
Oh, you're right, brother. I completely forgot. This is an Oddfellows podcast. Silly me. Well, let me run the opening of our show. Hello, and welcome to the Three Links Oddcast, your podcast for all things having to do with Odd Fellowship. And now, here are your hosts. All right, welcome everyone to the Three Links Oddcast with your three hosts. I'm Toby Hansen.
I'm Ainsley Heilich.
And I'm Sergio Paredes.
We would like to thank our wonderful sponsors, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. They pay for all of our wonderful podcast hosting and make sure we can distribute this show to all of you. So we want to make sure you take the opportunity to check out their wonderful bath products. They've got their fall collection of soaps. They are making soaps right now. They're in beautiful Missoula, Montana. The leaves are changing color and there's a little nip in the air. What a perfect time for bathing. Heck, any time is a perfect time for bathing if you got a little hot water around. So be sure and check out Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. And Brother Ainsley, I understand our humble little podcast here just hit a new milestone.
Yes, indeed. Our podcast has now officially hit 1,000 downloads.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of you listeners out there who have downloaded the show, and especially all of those of you who like it and have told other people about it. And Brother Sergio, I understand that we are still giving away stickers to people who tell others about the podcast.
Yes, indeed we are. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. We really appreciate it. 1,000 is quite a number. So for everyone who won the stickers from the first one, I got those sent out. They're in the mail. They've been there already. So hopefully you'll be getting them in the coming week or so. But once you get them, feel free to share on Instagram or social media, take a picture, tag us in it, and let us see how you're sporting that fancy sticker you're going to get. And have some of your friends share it, and then we'll be able to work to send out some more your way.
Yeah, we've got some really cool stuff. I've seen the stickers. I haven't got mine yet, but I've seen them, and they really look awesome. Our design team here at the Three Links Oddcast just did a fantastic job with all of our promotional items, starting with the stickers. So I know some of you heard the last episode and you thought, oh, This will be the next one where they talk about Oddfellow cemeteries. Well, another hurricane hit the Gulf Coast again. I believe this one is Sally. And so they're still dealing with some problems down there in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and all throughout the South. And once again, our thoughts and prayers go out to all of them who've been affected by these back-to-back storms. Sergio, you and I being on the West Coast, we can certainly empathize with that because we've been dealing with these very smoky wildfires. I think today is the first day that I have ever seen Washingtonians genuinely happy to see rain. So you know that it's been significant. But we're actually going to hold off for a couple more episodes on talking about the history of Oddfellow cemeteries so we can accommodate our guest and give him some time to recover from all of this turmoil. But in the meantime, we're going to be talking about something else that has really affected Odd Fellowship this year. And that, of course, is the global pandemic, COVID-19. So earlier in the week, we put out some feelers to various groups, social media, and sent it around to a few different people that we know. And we were trying to gauge some of the effects of COVID-19 and what has happened to Oddfellows Lodges and how they're weathering this particular challenge. And the first area we kind of wanted to talk about is meetings. How have the meetings been affected?
So we sent out the questions, and so the ones that I had posted on social media, most of the responses, I think, were across the board pretty similar. The main categories they all seem to fall into are A, the lodges just aren't meeting or doing nothing at all. It's just dark. B, the lodges aren't meeting in person, but they're meeting online via Zoom or some other kind of video conferencing software. Or C, the lodges have completely disregarded anything they've been told as far as postponing or COVID, and they're just business as usual. And some are using social distancing measures and some are not. So it's been kind of a fairly even split from what I found of those three categories.
Well, you know, part of that variation is due to the different ways in which individual states have met the challenge of dealing with COVID. I'm in Washington, and we got hit first. You know, back in early February, we got hit by the pandemic with the first outbreak at a care facility here. And so at the time, everyone was really unsure of what was going on. And by about the second week of March, our governor decided everything had to shut down. That was it. Everything, lock it up, stop it. No bars, no restaurants, no clubs, no concerts, nothing. And of course, lodge meetings fell under that. And so, of course, the last lodge meeting that I went to was the second Wednesday in March. And it was the following Tuesday that everything shut down here in Washington State. And for the most part, our lodges have not started meeting again because over the summer, the threat level went down in June. And so we started opening up. But then as we started opening up, transmissions went up again. So then we said, oh, I guess we have to restrict that. My associate lodge, Buckley 75, we actually went back to meeting in July because we had thought in June we would be in phase 3 of the recovery plan, which would allow gatherings of up to 50 people. But we got sort of squashed back down to phase 2, and so we had to stop meeting. Now, as it turns out, with our bat infestation problem at the lodge hall, that's actually not such a bad thing. But other lodges are hoping to begin meeting in person here in October because we're expecting, it's looking like we should be good for small meetings with social distancing. Now, as an idea of what these meetings looked like over the summer when we did them, we did not take up the grip. We did not take up the password. The warden stood up from his station, looked around the lodge, confirmed that he knew that everyone there was a member, and informed the noble grand of that. So there wasn't actually the usual taking up of the password. We all gave the sign, but everything else was socially distant. We were all seated very spaced evenly around the hall, so we weren't close together. I am anticipating when the meetings begin again here in October, that's probably the way it's going to be around Washington. Sergio, what have you seen or heard going on down in California?
Where I'm at, I'm in LA County, so that's pretty much I think they were saying that was the West Coast epicenter at one time. So for the most part, we just started opening a little bit more as far as lodge activity. It's pretty much, it depends on what your lodge feels comfortable with. My lodge, LA 35, we've been just keeping Zoom meetings for the most part, keeping in contact, phone calls or emails. But pretty much everybody's online. We're just playing it safe and not taking so much chances. So pretty much since March, we haven't had an actual physical meeting in the lodge. So it's been quite some time.
Now, I like what you mentioned there, the Zoom meetings. All of us have had to do a certain amount of our professional work via Zoom. Ainsley, I'm sure you're probably tattooing over the web. You've got
yes, remote tattooing via Zoom. The clients are safely in their homes, and
the future is now.
Yes,
and
the future is now.
That's really how it should be. Tattoo artists are so overpaid as it is.
Oh, absolutely. If I could tattoo them while they're in their home, then I could just probably stay in my bed and just do it from an iPad or something.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver Peck ruined it for all of you guys. Let's be honest here.
Yes.
Now that he's famous, it's like, oh, tattoo artists are overpaid. But we're all using Zoom professionally in some way now. I know I've done musical concerts on Facebook. And so this kind of substitute interaction via the World Wide Web has become normalized. And one cool thing about that is we can go visit other lodges in a way we couldn't do before. I have been able to visit lodges in Atlanta, in New Orleans, in Vancouver, Washington. I sat in on a meeting of Vancouver number 3 a couple weeks ago. A couple other lodges around the country who have put out invitations on Zoom, and I've got to interact with those members, and that has really been fun. That's been one of the sort of highlights of the otherwise challenging situation of this pandemic. Have you guys had the chance to visit other lodges that way?
Yeah, I was able to do 2 Zoom lodge meetings. One with the Brothers of Columbia number 2 in Victoria, British Columbia, and with Michael Greenziger's lodge. Oh shoot, what's
Mountain
the name?
View?
Mountain View.
Mountain View.
Yeah.
Yes, I was about to say Mountain Home. I was like, nope, Mountain View. Yes. So I attended a meeting there, and my lodge, we've been doing the Facebook video because we have a chat thread of all the people in our lodge, so it's easy there to just hit the little video button and people can join a meeting if they so choose. And we've been actually allowing our candidates to attend those meetings as well, because we were going to have our annual group initiation degree day, and that got canceled because that was right in the beginning of the shutdown. So it's been good to try to be able to include those not quite yet members, as even though we won't let them vote during the meetings. We'll still, they're allowed to see what's going on and give their input and opinions on, if we're gonna do a donation or something like that.
Yeah, how about you, Sergio?
I've only been able to make one other one, and that was in Florida. Florida was the last one I went to, and that's they had I forgot what was the lodge.
Was it Harry Marsh that you did?
I can't remember. I just saw it. I just got like a notification saying, "Hey, we're having a meeting." So I was just like, "Okay," I clicked right on it. Yeah. So I forgot what part of Florida it was in, but that was they have like some Grand United members in there, and that's the one where I didn't even notice until they were like, "Hey, Grand United here." I don't know what this whole independent stuff is about.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting in that respect. But the experience I got was everybody was super friendly. It was just like walking into a Cheers bar, where everybody's just like, hey, what's up, guy?
What you're saying
Yeah.
is it was like visiting a lodge of Oddfellows.
Pretty much. In the simplest way, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one issue that has come up, and this is something I've been talking to various individuals around the country about what's going on in their lodges. And that's the question of whether or not you can actually do legal business in a lodge Zoom meeting. Now, I can tell you in my jurisdiction, our Grand Master made a decision back in the spring. He said, no business, you can have social meetings, you can do social events, you can keep people engaged with online meetings, but I don't want to do any kind of legal business. I don't want lodges voting on things. I don't want anything like that happening in an online meeting. And I'm fine with that. And I appreciate that he addressed the issue early on and let everyone know so that everybody had a clear understanding of what they should and should not do. But different jurisdictions are handling that differently. I've heard that in California, they have actually been having some meetings where business has been transacted via Zoom. So
yeah. So my lodge, we did that. I didn't make it the last one, but the meeting before that, we actually had one where we just took care of business. We made our donations to charity, and we took care of the business.
that's true. Each jurisdiction is approaching these things differently. I talked to a good friend of our podcast, Grand Master of New York, Mike Zarell, and he told me that they have not been doing business in the Zoom meetings, but they have a system in his home lodge where the secretary has been collecting the mail, compiling the bills, leaving them on the desk. Financial secretary comes in, reviews them, takes in all of the income, and then the treasurer writes out the checks and mails them on behalf of the lodge. So when they go back to meeting, they're going to have quite a number of bills to read into the record and a lot for the finance committee to review as they go, oh, here's 6 months worth of bills which were acted on in the interim. That's one of the issues is, like, if you're not meeting regularly, how are you paying the bills?
That's a pretty good question, but I think at some point, unless things really start to turn around, eventually something's going to have to be met in the middle. That's where I see it going, because I don't see this thing going away. So maybe they'll be like, okay, well, let's give Zoom a shot.
This is one of those instances where I know a lot of lodges do this, where after they do the installations for the year, the first order of business to vote on will be to allow for the payment of all bills that will be coming in for the year, and the lodge will just pre-vote to approve all bills, if the electric bill, like the stuff like that they know is going to be a recurring expenses. So those things could, keep, coming through and not having to be, obviously you got to pay your bills. You can't use the excuse of we haven't had lodge for 6 months as the reason that you haven't paid your power bill for 6 months, But what my lodge has been doing, and we've kind of been doing this all along anyway, which I know isn't exactly super kosher, but since our lodges, a lot of us are online and all day, on Facebook and stuff. If something comes up, we just put it to an informal loose vote on the Facebook group and get that vote there. And then we'll formally vote on it during a meeting. But obviously we've not been having the meetings, but we've just been using Facebook as our private chat group as our vehicle for doing donations, because a lot of these donations have been to things on the fly that if you waited until the next time you had a meeting, it would be too far past whatever the need or the purpose of that donation.
Well, one thing I can say for that, we're about to find out if the Grand Master of Illinois is listening to the podcast. Hey, wait a minute. You can't do it that way.
That's 2 bumps under the bus at that point.
Well, we haven't had any complaints from our past Grand Master, who's also in our chat thread. So hopefully we're okay.
And let me just say, past Grand Masters are always right. Always. Don't question it out there, folks. Just if the past Grand Master says it, go with it.
Yeah.
You know,
Go
speaking as a
ahead,
past
write that
grandmaster
down.
myself.
Sometimes you just got to do that $200 donation to the food pantry. You know, it's just got to happen.
And we actually did that in Buckley in my associate lodge. The one last meeting that we were able to have before we had to go dark again for the pandemic and for the bats. We made our $500 donation to the food bank in Buckley because with the pandemic, there has been an increased need in our community at the food bank. And Buckley is a small community in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains. This is not necessarily a place where we get, you know, $10,000 corporate donors just dropping by and handing out checks. So that $500 to the Buckley Food Bank is a really, really critical thing. We're very happy we were able to make that happen before we had to go dark again, which is good. Now, another thing that's been interesting, and you touched on this, Ainsley, people who've not yet been able to join the lodge, with these online social meetings, they are able to get involved. And since it's open and it's not a closed thing where we're doing all the rituals and everything like that, they can actually come in and participate in these online meetings, get a feel for everyone, you know, start to make their place in the lodge. I know at my home lodge, which is Ballard Alki 170 in Seattle, they've had people who've been very patiently waiting to join. We have a wonderful artist in Seattle named Joey Robinson who's been wanting to join the lodge for a couple months now. And the lodge is holding regular events every Thursday night on Zoom. He's been able to participate in those so that when we go back to meeting in person, he will already have connections to those new people. So instead of that sort of cold period right after you're initiated and you're overwhelmed and you're thinking, who are all these people and why am I suddenly calling them brother and sister? He's able to come in and already have those kind of relationships.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So another thing that we just touched on was the financial impact on lodges.
Can I just add one thing to that last
Oh, sure. Go
issue
ahead.
you just covered? With everything going on, the Zoom meetings for me have been a godsend because when I was initiated of November of 2019, so I only had maybe 2.5, 3 months before everything kind of hit the fan down here. So I never really got that full experience like I was so excited for. So the Zoom meetings, the online communities and everything, those really do right now, with lockdowns and everything, they play a huge part, and they definitely kept me active and interactive and keep on pursuing, even though technically I can't go into my physical lodge and we still have everything online. The Zoom meetings is an excellent way to network. So that way, once everything opened up, I could go to New Jersey now with Family Lodge, pass by, say what's up. You know, I could go to anywhere because I already made the connection. So it kind of takes that awkwardness of going into a brand new place where you're just getting to know people, and to me it's kind of an advantage. So the Zoom is pretty awesome. I definitely wasn't a fan of it at first, but it's grown on me.
I think another way of saying that is the lodge is the building, but Odd Fellowship is that experience that you have interacting with your brothers and sisters. Let's say just at random, you happen to be in oil country in Williston, North Dakota. You could stop in at Fort Buford Lodge number 18, where I know we've got people downloading the podcast. Hello, Williston, North Dakota. And they would love to have you as a guest there. And so we get to have these experiences of interacting and sharing Odd Fellowship outside of the boundaries of our lodge halls by this wonderful electronic communication. You know, we can do this podcast, and we have Modern Goat Writer, and we have the various Facebook groups. We've got the Discord server. There are all these wonderful ways in which we can interact as Oddfellows, not being physically in the same space. I think that has been another really great side benefit from this otherwise dreary pandemic.
Totally. Totally. I think right now for people who are interested, now is the time to just kind of, shoot us that email or that DM and kind of see if there's a meeting happening during your free time. There's something happening during the week. I can almost guarantee it. So
And
it's
hey,
definitely something to look out for.
what is the email address of the Three Links Oddcast?
But of course, our email address is the number 3 linksoddcast@gmail.com. That's the number 3 linksoddcast@gmail.com. So you can always send us something if you're curious or want some more information. We could try to help you out.
That's right. We do love listener interaction here at the Three Links Oddcast. That's how we get some of our best ideas. That's how we got the idea to do the Oddfellow Cemetery episode that keeps getting postponed. So going back to this idea of finances, some more information from Mike Zarell, the Grand Master of New York, talking about his lodge. He says that their finances took a hit, but he doesn't think it's going to be anything that will threaten the long-term viability of the lodge. Now, I know here in Washington, we have at least 2 lodges that have run out of money. They didn't have a lot of money in the bank to start with. And because of that, they rely on money coming in from events, from rentals of the hall, from fundraisers they do, when none of that has been able to happen here in Washington. And so the call went out to our Grand Lodge, and still being on the executive committee as junior past Grand Master, we met and we decided that we would use some of our reserved funds here to help pay the bills for those lodges that were struggling, because we don't want those lodges to fail just because they can't meet their property taxes. We think it's worth investing in Odd Fellowship to help those lodges continue on. One lodge that did something that did not seem quite brilliant at the time, but has turned out to be great, is one of my favorite lodges here in Washington, Mount Constitution 88, which is on Orcas Island. They signed a rental management contract with the local co-op on Orcas Island to manage the hall. The co-op would do all of the rental management because they do a lot of wedding business. They have a beautiful location. Their hall is built right on Madrona Point, right on Puget Sound. It is an amazing wedding venue, and they make a lot of money from that through the wedding season. So at the beginning of the year, everybody was thinking, why are we limiting the lodge's income to a set amount per month in this contract? The way it turned out with all of the weddings canceling is that what has happened is not limiting their income, but limiting their liability, which turns out to have been a brilliant move on their part. I'm curious if either of you have heard about any of the financial ramifications that are hitting other lodges.
I've only heard, kind of murmurs and rumors of, certain lodges not having enough to cover their per capita, or if it's between paying their per capita or their bills or things like that. But I haven't heard anything on my end that has been, anything that I can verify other than it just being rumor. But I'm sure we'll see as time goes on if, lodges do end up closing or surrendering charters because they just were on that last little, that zombie lodge on its last person to make that quorum, and they just decide this is too much for a group of people of their age to worry about, and they just give it up. That's what I fear is probably going to be the bigger implication, more so than the financial responsibility, is that the financial insecurity is too stressful.
I'm sorry, just really quick. It was one thing that I didn't get to share on that Secret Society's podcast was I thought it was pretty cool how they had that little anecdote about how one of the skulls that they pulled from one of the abandoned Oddfellow lodges actually made its way into the original George Romero's Dawn of the Dead movie as a prop. That one, that was something that it was been on the back of my head that I wanted to say, and it just came up to my.
And you're like, I gotta watch that movie again just to see if I could spot it.
Yeah, I'm totally looking for it, but I gotta remember to raise up the hoodwinks before I start looking.
Yeah. Well, speaking of zombies, which is probably what prompted that, because George Romero was a master of the genre. If a zombie lodge somehow failed, A, would anyone know? Or B, would a zombie lodge actually be in a better position to survive something like the pandemic? Because nobody's going to notice or care if they don't meet for 9 months, and they're not doing anything in the community, so they're not going to be missed. You know, in some ways, maybe a zombie lodge is secretly a hibernating lodge.
That's true. They've been hibernating for probably 20 years. So what's another 6 months?
Exactly. In a way, maybe a zombie lodge is actually in a better position to survive this than a big active lodge with 30 people at a meeting where they get discouraged if they can't get together for 6 months.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
lodge that's like sitting on that $20,000 CD that's been rolling over for like the past 100 years, and they know they'll be okay. They just don't ever want to touch it.
That's right. We can't buy t-shirts for the lodge. That's not our money to spend. Brother Andrew gave that money to us in 1897. Wow. Boy. How much have you made on interest since 1897, just rolling those CDs over? 0.5%? All right. So at this point, I think it's time to do our shout out. Yay!
Ooh.
This episode's shout out comes to us from the jurisdiction of Pennsylvania. It is Mount Hor Lodge, number 736 of Cassville, Pennsylvania. Now, this is a pretty active and involved lodge. The brother who nominated this, Scott Parks, I believe, he told us some about the lodge, about how they were chartered in 1870, which means they're 150 years old now. And they have a long history in their area of Pennsylvania. The lodge hall has moved around a little bit. And they were almost dead in the 90s. They had 8 members on the books and they were not meeting very often. But some people jumped in and said, hey, we can get this going again. And some very active people joined the lodge and really got it going. They've had a Grand Master of Pennsylvania come from that lodge. They've done a lot of great things in the community. And they've also helped one of the other lodges in their area to revive as well. Anything you have to add to that, Sergio?
Yeah, they're really active. I had asked for a picture of just to get an idea and to put up on our website later, and he had no shortage of pictures. It was just, they have their events, everybody dresses up, they have their lodge, they have all their props and everything. So it looks pretty active. So hopefully I'll get that online and everybody will be able to see that. So that's something to look out for as well.
Yeah, in his email here, he says they do an annual Easter egg hunt where they hide around 4,000 eggs, and each child who participates gets an Easter basket. That is really, really impressive. They also make soup for the Cassville Oktoberfest. And hey, if you need an accordion player for that, let me know. Hey, any gig I can get at this point. And he says everybody looks forward to the homemade soup that the Oddfellows provide there. They've been running the food booth for the local high school football team, volunteering at every home varsity football game for the last 2 years. And he says it's really gotten them noticed in the community. People comment on how well they get along and work together. One of the best things any lodge can do if you want to revitalize your lodge and get people in your community interested is get active in the community. Get out there and do something. Do something where people can see you. Volunteer as a group at the food bank to repackage food for individual distribution. Do the kind of things that are happening at Mount Hor in Pennsylvania. Because a lodge does not last 150 years by sitting around and doing nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And not just that, but that's the beauty of lodges. Every lodge is different. So, you could find one lodge where, they're more active. They have a particular set of activities. And if that's your cup of tea, you have that. you could travel, a few miles down the road, and you might be able to find another lodge that, is more into the traditional approach and more community events and stuff like that. So every lodge has its different flavors and all that. So all that kind of just is a representation of the community they're in.
And if you want to find out more about Mount Hor 736 in Pennsylvania, we're going to put the shout out up on our website, 3linksoddcast.com. And for the URL, the word 3 is actually spelled out there. So it's THREE, linksoddcast.com. With that, we're going to take a quick break and listen to a wonderful message from our sponsors, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. And then we'll be right back to talk more about COVID-19 and its impacts on Odd Fellowship. You can feel it in that late summer breeze. Autumn is just around the corner with its chilly mornings and cozy evenings. Why not give yourself the gift of beautiful scented bath products? Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff is introducing their new fall scents for 2020. The soothing, calming smells of autumn are now available in all your favorite soaps, scrubs, and other bath stuff. Made of the finest ingredients right in rugged Missoula, Montana, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff gives you a little bit of luxury in your everyday cleansing routine. The time is never better to pamper yourself than right now, because they've generously extended their special offer to listeners of the 3 Links Oddcast. Use the code THANKYOU24 at checkout. That's the words thank you and the number 24 at checkout to receive 24% off your purchase. Once you've tried the smooth, wonderful bath stuff from Pig and a Pug, you'll want to indulge in a luxurious bath as often as possible. Remember, Pig and a Pug Bath Stuff. Look them up on Facebook and Etsy and use the code THANKYOU24 at checkout for a 24% discount. Happy bathing! Okay, we are back here on the 3 Links Oddcast. Toby, Sergio, Ainsley, we're all talking about COVID-19 and how it has impacted Odd Fellowship. Well, what about membership? I got a nice email here from Brother Harrison Moore down in Texas. He belongs to Greater Houston Lodge number 6, which is in Pasadena, Texas. And I had seen some comments that he had made somewhere else. I don't know if he had emailed the show or if I saw it on social media. I reached out to him and asked him about what was going on with membership. And he told me that they actually have initiated people and given them the 3 degrees. And the way that they did it is they contacted their friends in the Scottish Rite there in Houston, because they have access to that building. And they set up socially distant stations for each of the candidates for the initiation of degrees. And they played the videos of the initiation and degrees on the screens. All the candidates wore masks. Everyone was socially distanced. And I thought that given the circumstances, that was a really great solution, because they were still able to get people in, get people started on their journey in Odd Fellowship, and doing it in the lowest risk way possible.
That's really clever. There's, I think, going to be a lot of different ways we're going to see initiations and degrees being put on. Either, while we cannot do it by Zoom or anything like that, and that is an established thing that we cannot do. We do have the video degrees, which, for the most part are used out of necessity in certain areas when you just cannot assemble a degree team. But to do it as a socially distant form of degrees, that is actually a really good use of the video degrees. Here in Illinois, we have a lodge that is going to be putting on, I guess I'll call it a regional degree day. a region's going to be putting on a degree day in October. They're going to be doing it outdoors. So it'll be able to have enough room in between everybody. And where they're going to be doing it is at one of the lodges that's actually on kind of like a campground. So it's on private property. It's got plenty of land to spread out on. And they'll be able to do, I don't think they're doing a full initiation. I think they already are just going to just do the 3 degrees. I think initiations are already done for all those people. But still, I think that's a really, a good way to think outside the box while still working within the rules and finding ways to creatively move forward as, because we just can't keep people waiting in the wings forever. We want to get them involved.
Yeah, like Sergio mentioned earlier, he only got a couple months of actual in-person fellowship before everything shut down. So for him, getting in and getting started was really important. And it has been equally important, if not more so, to have the online communities in which to participate, so he still stays engaged with it.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, this whole thing, it's like I was initiated. They're like, "Welcome to our lodge," and then when they turned around, the door kind of closed right behind them. I was like, "Oh, what?" So it didn't. Yeah, if I would have known, I would have just slept over for maybe a couple weeks or something. So it was definitely a punch in the gut when that happened, because I was totally looking forward to it. My initiation was phenomenal. So, that's something I look forward to that after all this. But, with people getting creative too, that's also that's very much appreciated as well. I mean, if I had the opportunity to attend something that was socially distanced, everybody's taking the necessary precautions, I would definitely think about attending something like that, just for that added experience of everything's happening outside, and yet we're still right here focusing on the ritual and all that. So it makes for an interesting backdrop.
And I think perhaps this could be a topic for a future episode. Ainsley, you mentioned the outdoor degrees there in Illinois.
Yes.
In the jurisdiction of Oregon, they have a degree day at the Hahn Farm, which is out northwest of Portland in sort of the lush green hills heading out towards the coast. And normally that's in September. I haven't heard if they're actually doing the degree day this year or not because of the pandemic. But that is a wonderful weekend. I've never been able to attend because I'm usually working weekends in the fall. They do the initiation and 3 degrees on Saturday, and it's all on a beautiful farm out in the countryside that's owned by a past Grand Master of Oregon. And then on Sunday, they do all of the encampment degrees, and they do the encampment degrees with all of the dramatic elements. So those of
fantastic.
You who have traveled the road and have been through the perilous journey and done all of the encampment degrees, how much fun that is just in a lodge hall. Imagine doing it outside. I think put this on our show suggestion sheet for the future, talking about alternate locations for degrees, because I know they also do, I think it's the second degree in Wairika, California, in the cave by moonlight.
Mm-hmm. And we have known as the cave degree.
Yes, yeah. And we have the Earthen Lodge in Illinois where they will do once or twice a year. They'll do initiations in an authentic Earthen Lodge, and I've not been able to attend that yet. But what they do, from what I'm told, is they bring the candidate from across a field to this Earthen Lodge while ready to go, right? And I just a firelight, nighttime. I want to see that someday. I am a big fan of nighttime initiations anyway, and I think to have just like fire and all of that with it would just really just be a next level experience. So I hope someday to see that.
Yeah, that one sounds impressive.
Yeah, but I think I had my fill with the fires on the West Coast for a little bit, so yeah. I might pass the first time around.
And I know in Idaho, they used to do the initiation, and I believe the 3 degrees as well, in Dead Horse Cave. They haven't been able to do it recently because Bureau of Land Management has eliminated access to that part of the federal lands for some reason. So they haven't been able to do it recently. But I think a possible show topic could be alternate site locations for degrees.
Totally.
As far as other aspects of membership goes, I'm still getting applications. My associate lodge in Buckley, we've got 2 applications sitting on the desk. I am hoping we're going to be able to go back to meeting with social distancing in October so we can act on those. We have had a member of the lodge in contact with the applicants to let them know it's going to be probably a couple of months before we can act on it, get them interviewed and initiated. So they're prepared for that. I know other places have had inquiries for membership. One thing you've talked about this, Ainsley, the pandemic seems to be giving people the impression that it's time to get involved in something where they can connect with people.
Yeah, that's what I feel like, at least from my end of Odd Fellowship, what I'm witnessing is a lot of people that were maybe kind of on the fence about joining an organization or all those things that it entails. You know, people a lot of times I feel like don't want to join something because they know they're going to get kind of forced into doing stuff they don't want to do. And I think at this point, people are realizing that they have to kind of stick their necks out a little bit and do things that they don't want to do in order to make new friends and connections with people and experiences, because they're probably finding right now that maybe their circle of friends isn't as big as they thought it was. And maybe they're not nearby their family. And if they live far away and they only have maybe like a small group of acquaintances that aren't really, you know, looking out for anybody. And their people are lonely and they need people that they could depend on.
Yeah. And boy, there's no better way to take care of being lonely and looking for new people to become friends with than joining the Odd Fellows Lodge. Because one great thing about Odd Fellowship is, having been at a reduced capacity now for the last 40 years at least, we are so happy to have new people just show interest. Even with all of the things the Secret Society's podcast got wrong about Odd Fellowship, it caused that surge of interest. And, you know, every once in a while, there are these things that come along where there's some sort of little nugget of culture that prompts people to look at us, talk about us, rediscover us. American Pickers has been good for that. Lodge 49 was good for that. Got people to go, oh, it can be fun to be in a fraternal order. I can wear a robe, like that Vice Grand's robe in the lobby of the Lynx Lodge. As soon as I saw that, I was like, that's the Vice Grand's robe.
Well, my hodgepodge is definitely going to tie in with this little notion a little bit, but that'll be my teaser for later.
Oh, see, now you're getting good at broadcasting. You're doing teasers. Yeah. Well, anything more you want to add about membership here?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I think, you know, for anybody out there listening, and if you've kind of been on the fence about it, or kind of like, I mean, some of the stuff they do seems fun, but some of it just kind of seems boring, or I don't want to be, you know, don't worry about it. Like, you don't have to, when you join the Odd Fellows, you don't have to be an officer. You don't have to do all this stuff that we do. Just because we want to do it doesn't mean you have to do it. There's more than one way to be an Odd Fellow. Some of our members are really good at, you know, being on committees and planning events. Some of our members really just want to be a workhorse and just be told where to go and put me where you need me and I'll do it. And they just don't want a lot of responsibility. They just want to kind of be there and help. And we've got a lot of people that don't even want to join the lodge, but I kind of call them like ante room members, because they don't want to be in the lodge, but they might as well be in the lodge because they do everything with us, even except for the actual lodge stuff, because they're not members. But you know, you need to have people in these different niches, and so don't be afraid to join just because you're afraid you're going to get roped into a bunch of stuff you didn't want to do. like being lodge secretary or something crazy like that?
Yeah, from what I've been getting, the emails, messages, and everything, there is a peak in interest, and there are people like there's a gentleman, and I believe Texas. Forgive me if I got that wrong, but Eric, he's going to be initiated tomorrow, so he was very excited about that. So
Nice.
there's definitely an interest, even though I wish it was more in the LA County area for me, but hopefully that'll turn around. But this is definitely the time. So like somebody like myself who tends to be a little socially awkward, the whole initiation was just this whole daunting experience. That it just had a lasting effect because I am not used to that at all. So I think that it served its purpose well.
I was gonna say, so you're saying it did its job?
Yeah.
Exactly, very much so. So with this whole thing kind of pumping the brakes on lodge activities, it kind of gave me the opportunity to kind of skip that awkward step of walking into a room filled with essentially strangers the first day, and just kind of like, okay, now what? The whole experience of being able to go online, like people send me emails asking for lodges, or if we have any information, which we if you email any of us, we always try to help out, get you going in the right direction. So there's always going to be a group of people, and I think right now that we're all kind of separated, we're actually working harder to kind of seek each other out. So if you have questions or concerns, like now is the time to just kind of shoot us an email, and then there's always a Zoom meeting or something. You could just kind of come in, drop in from the comfort of your house. Pants are optional. And just kind of wave hi and everything. So it's definitely it's definitely something that could work to people's advantage who don't feel comfortable making that first step, and just kind of they feel like that pressure, like, okay, I go there, I have to shake everybody's hand, I have to go and introduce, I have to be on my best behavior. It's a little bit more easygoing, a little bit more laid back, and I think because of that, it helps us. It helps everybody, the person who's looking to get more information, to feel more comfortable and just ask as many questions as they want, and then get the ball rolling from there.
And if they feel shy at a Zoom meeting, they could just turn the camera off.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh my God, don't get me started on that. Like sometimes I just put a paper bag and just put a little circle in the middle or something.
Well,
so that's always a blessing too.
Your comment reminded me of the motto of one of our past grand patriarchs here in Washington, Greg Powers, who was always emphatic at sharing his belief that a patriarch doesn't have to wear pants in his own encampment. And if you know Greg, you understand he had no qualms about showing up in anything from his lederhosen to his kilt. So he was prepared to back that up.
We have a lot of kilt wearers in the northern part of Illinois it's kind of like their thing in Region 1. It's pretty cool.
It seems like it would be too cold to do that in northern Illinois.
Oh, you just got to watch out for the wind.
Ah, okay.
Pin down those kilts.
Well, that's what the sporon is for. It
Yes.
hangs down there and mostly tries to keep the kilt down. I say that because my predecessor as Grand Master here in Washington was Brother Kelly Hughes, who is a very fine Highland piper. And yes, he does have a kilt, and he wore it on several occasions. Well, anything more for this episode, brothers?
I think we've pretty much nailed it. And probably a good topic for a future episode, once we kind of get to that point, is reintegration, and what do we do to, bring lodges and people back to lodge now that they've been away for so long? Because that's gonna be the next issue, is getting everybody to come back.
All right, Sergio,
Yeah.
Put that on the list.
It's on there.
Excellent. Well, let's do some odd pod, shall we? Sergio, do you want to go first?
Sure. Don't forget, everybody who received a sticker, go ahead, show that, tag a friend, have them tag us, and then we'll get some more stickers out there. If you have any questions, we've getting quite a bit of emails. If you're just curious, trying to find out a lodge close to you, or you just have some random question about something you heard in the Secret Society podcast, by all means, shoot us an email. I try to respond to the emails as soon as possible. So pretty much that. And then also, I am looking to start like a pen pal. So if you have older members who aren't as savvy on the computers or anything like that, you could always contact me through email, and then I could get in contact and we could work something out. Keep people who tend to stick to pen and paper in the loop.
That's wonderful. And what is that email address again?
That email address is the number 3 linkspodcast@gmail.com. Once again, the number 3 linkspodcast@gmail.com.
Well, I'm going to go next. My Odd Podge for this episode is a new effort that I'm starting with a friend of mine, because I have a friend who was actually initiated and joined about 5 years ago, but then his professional career took him in many different directions and he wasn't able to get involved in his lodge. So he contacted me earlier this week. He said, hey, I just took a new job in a new part of the state, and I'm wondering if there's an Oddfellows Lodge there so I can get involved in it when I'm in that part of the state, because he's going to be working from home part of the time and then in this other part of the state. And I said, you know what? 6 years ago, we had a lodge there. They gave up their charter. But if you can get some people together, we might actually be able to get that lodge going again. He said, you know, I think I can probably find 5 or 6 people who would be interested. And I said, that's great. I will send you a stack of applications. You start going around and talking it up, and we'll see if we can maybe get that lodge going again. So if there are any listeners out there in Southwest Washington, particularly in Cowlitz County, shoot us an email here at the 3 Links Oddcast. That's the number 3 Links Oddcast @gmail.com. And I can get you hooked up with that initiative. We're going to see if we can maybe get the lodge in Kelso going again. So fingers crossed. We're just starting that process right now. So that's my Odd Podge. And Brother Ainsley, what do you have to share?
All right. So I've been sitting on this one for a little bit, but I had to wait until I got the green light from the Sovereign Grand Master Wes and Sovereign Grand Secretary Terry. So I don't know if anybody out there has heard of the television program Ghost Brothers. It's on the Travel Channel.
Ooh, I'll have to start watching that. This sounds important.
Well, next week, I will be the historical expert for the Oddfellows on an episode that will be recording in Watseka, Illinois. And it will be about a member who was Noble Grand of that lodge. And there is a paranormal aspect because obviously the show is called Ghost Brothers. Mm-hmm. And so some of my personal items will also be used as props on the program. And I will hopefully have my 15 seconds of fame on the Travel Channel and talk about how wonderful the Oddfellows are. And hopefully it'll create a huge wave of people wanting to join us.
Of course it will. Once people see your smiling face and your amazing beard on TV, they'll be like,
I know I got a little beard envy right now. Every time I see you, my chin just quivers a bit.
Oh.
I know what you mean. It's so lustrous and thick and beautiful, Ainsley.
I take such great pains to keep it looking so tidy, and I oil it and I comb it and I trim it and pet it.
That's wonderful.
I'm so blessed with this beard because underneath I look like Michael Cera. So it's
we can tell that you are someone who actually appreciates their beard and takes care of it.
Yes. I hate nothing but a haystack looking beard on somebody that's just wild and bushy and out of control. And you just need to chill it a little bit. Just calm it. It needs some moisture.
Talk to it a little bit.
Yeah. You gotta like fluff it.
Well, that is just awesome news about Ghost Brothers.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I guess the
Congrats.
producer found me on, I think it was through one of my YouTube videos that I had done. And I mean, obviously, if you Google Oddfellows, not to, toot my own horn or humble brag or anything, but it doesn't take too long to stumble across me if you're just type in a general search for Oddfellows, because I've been so prolific in my graphic design and artwork and blogging and all the different things I've done over the past 7 years. So
Now I have a question. Are you going to wear your Garrison cap?
I will not be wearing my Garrison cap, but I will be dressing up in my Grand Lodge formal attire, which is kind of like a Western old-fashioned looking vest and a bow tie and things like that.
Ooh, nice.
So I'll try to look the part of kind of the eccentric dandy is kind of what I'm going for.
Oh, that'll be perfect.
Yes.
I imagine we're going to have every steampunk and cosplayer in the country who watches that go, yeah, I need to join the Oddfellows now.
Exactly.
And I say, come on in. If you already like wearing a bow tie, you're perfect for the Oddfellows.
And I'm sure there'll be bonus points if I could recognition symbol sneak that in there somewhere.
That's right. Get that in there.
Yeah.
That's what
and the
vests are good for.
Exactly. I was going to say the vest is perfect for that. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, brothers. We've had another excellent evening of discussing Odd Fellowship here. Remember, if you want to nominate your lodge for the shout out, send us an email. We want to hear about all the great things that are happening out there in your lodges. Another thing I want to do is tell you what's coming up on the next episode. We're going to be talking to some of the brothers from New Jersey who just chartered a new lodge. That's right. We are not yet dead. We are still growing and still adding new lodges, and Odd Fellowship is spreading all over the place. So we're going to have some of those members from New Jersey who just chartered the new lodge. They're going to be joining us. And then hopefully 2 episodes from now, we're finally going to be talking about cemeteries, and just in time for Halloween. Won't that be fun? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. On behalf of Ainsley and Sergio, I'm Toby, and we want to thank you all very much. Bye-bye.